Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of League Unlock, extending these power rankings, going fully international, global. Less love for the LCS and LEC, and of course, got to throw in that LPL flavor, but we still kind of begin with the, I don't want to call it mess, because that's a negative connotation. The chaos, even though still a bit negative, it makes for excitement. The drama that is the LCK right now. And yes, much like those domestic LCK rankings at the tippity top, if I told you these guys would be number one on these rankings at any point of the year mark, you would call me insane to put D+ in number one at the start of our global power rankings.
Holy cow, I'm just saying it right now. The power of playing for your next meal here. D+ Kia. Shortages of cash, no shortage of skill out there on Summoner's Rift right now. And I think that this lineup is absolutely, over the last, month and a half or so period, hitting their peak. They are hitting that stride, and they are finding that they are more than right up there with all the other elite talented squads in the LCK. And to start out this second split, the results have keep piling up for this D+ Kia squad. And there's no other answer, especially when you see, again, some of the other action going on in the LCK. And not that these teams aren't strong or good as well, but we're swapping places, we're winning, we're losing, all these other things. So you have to pay attention to the streak that D+ Kia has been able to be on at the beginning of this split, and acknowledge that streak that they have been on and what they have done in comparison to every other top tier team in the LCK.
Just remember, we are not that far removed from the CV Max flaming behind the scenes. At one point, they were 7-7, a 500 team, mixed in with the likes of Nongshim, BNK, FearX. Since then, they have rallied off 6 series wins in a row, including the most recent against the top dogs, and sprinkle in a little EWC title within there. And I mean, you can go top to bot. Everybody has been stepping up as of late. Showmaker getting praise from the youngins. We just saw Lucid reach the top 10 in assists for junglers in the LCK. I still feel like this guy's basically a rookie.
Yeah, it only feels like a year or two ago that he debuted in the LCK, and he certainly has been, one of these ones where I don't think it has been this explosive, immediate type of stardom level, but he has certainly shown that growth, that progression that you want to see, and experience that has been building up for him as an individual. I think you can also look at Smash down in the bottom lane, of course, has been one of these key aspects for this team. And Showmaker, as you said, playing like the Showmaker that has won a world championship, that has been one of the leading figures in the LCK, and now leading this D+ Kia squad to the top spot in the global power rankings.
And they have that top spot mainly because they did have that head-to-head win, again, at EWC, so it's a little bit of an asterisk, but it was against BLG, and that was one of these more recent factors to been tilting off the face of the earth. And listen, BLG has looked dominant with the 6-0 start, even without Bin in the lineup, and absolutely deserving of being ahead of all these other LCK squads so far.
Yeah, and it's been just, again, one of these ones where, yes, there is noise. Yes, there is some confusion around what is going to happen with that top side and how things settle out with Bin or whatever. But the On The Rift product, what you are seeing week in, week out, match result from this BLG, it's all there. And it's at that tippity top elite type of level. That is fantastic. Of course, Knight is performing still the way that you want and need him to for this BLG squad to be the terror that they are. But I think, again, you look towards that bottom lane. You are looking at Viper. You are looking at that champion pool that he can utilize. And right now, and for the foreseeable future, that is an absolute positive angle in your back pocket that nobody else is taken to that same type of level.
Yeah, they're continuing to kind of just separate themselves from the rest of the LPA. I don't even know if it's separating anymore because there's already been such a massive gap from Billy and the rest of the LPL teams basically in the entirety of 2026 so far. KT and T1 rounding out that top four, and, KT, much like D+, surprising with a young bot laner in Fenrir, who just absolutely laid into Gumayushi. They 2-0'd against T1, and T1 2-0 Gen.G. So really, I think the theme of what we're going to see in these global power rankings this split is a lot of flipping around, especially with these LCK teams, when we're going to be having so many head-to-heads at the top of the table in the Legend group. KT and T1 both get their shot at D+ this very week.
I think the important thing when you look at, again, having a D+ key at the top, having a KT roster ahead of some of these other top tiers in the LCK, it's looking at, again, as you laid out, what has happened so far in this LCK split and kind of some of the turmoil that you are looking at with squads like Gen.G, like Hanwha Life, like T1, and you have to compare that to the clean performances, the record that you are looking at with squads like D+ Kia and KT roster here, and you have to give that respect over. The key thing for me is, can you continue that into these next couple of weeks of this LCK, of this Legends group? Can you find a way that this is still what's happening, where you are finding your wins, you're continuing your streak? Are they still trading wins between the Gen.G, the T1, the Hanwha Life of the rest in that top area? That's, I think, is going to be the real test, because if just one of Gen.G, T1, or Hanwha Life start picking it up, start building their own type of streak, I think that's where you look at the squads like D+ Kia and KT under a little bit more of a heavy scrutiny of, can they maintain this position?
Yeah, and I think everyone's going to be waiting for that shoe to drop, for this to be this fever dream to end of D+ and KT roster. But we get to that big, they're all big matchups, but who's the least disappointing so far? We had Gen.G and Hanwha on the Rift, and that is usually who's the top dog in the LCK? But now it's to kind of stop the bleeding. And yes, we did get a banger game 3 between these two squads, and even if there were some misplays, looking at you, Delight, especially on that Leona in the third game, but it is Gen.G coming away with the win. And now Hanwha Life 0-3 since they have came back from MSI in the LCK, and there's a whole lot of question marks. If you want to just call it an MSI hangover, that remains to be seen.
I think even the most positive Hanwha Life people, that has to be the only angle that you can grasp onto right now, because otherwise this is looking a lot like a team that you've already seen. And I'm not talking about the Hanwha Life that you saw last split. I'm talking about the Hanwha Life you saw in the very first split of this year. The Hanwha Life that finished last in the LCK in that first split.
Feels like that was 2 years ago, by the way.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go as far as to say that is the true form of this Hanwha Life roster, but having split 2 and now looking much more like split 1 again, you're having trouble figuring out exactly what is going to be that consistent level of performance from this Hanwha Life team. You haven't seen it so far in this split 1, or all you've seen in split 1 has been consistently not up to the standard that is at this top tier in this Legends group of the LCK. And in this head-to-head against Gen.G, they fall in this one, where Gen.G had been looking, weak and limping heading into this one, but you get a pretty darn strong answer from the bottom lane of Gen.G. I think this was maybe unquestionably Ruler's best game of the split so far, and really was one of the key contributors that gets Gen.G through this. I'm looking at the way the game 3 ends, and the kind of a little bit of a fiesta action up there and fighting against the Elder Dragon, whatever. I think if both these teams are in their peak form, that's not the way that this series is ending.
Have you ever seen an Elder Dragon be used on yourself with a Renata ulti? I have never seen that interaction, and a lot had to go that way for Hanwha to end up losing this game, because Zeus was fully a raid boss on the Mundo, just like we saw at MSI. But, Ruler having his best game in several weeks all of a sudden you're going, okay, Fenrir just had an amazing series against Guma. Now Ruler's looking vintage against Guma. Are we a little sus with this Hanwha bot lane right now?
I think that is relatively fair. It's also one of these ones to remind ourselves that when things were going right for this Hanwha Life team, we're always praising Gumayushi in those big matchups. He was a big decider for that Hanwha Life squad. So it's just one of these ones where kind of tempering ourselves a little bit, but it's absolutely kind of exaggerated maybe a little bit more due to the slide that Hanwha Life has been finding themselves on alongside that surge of squads like D plus Kia and KT jumping over everybody else in that established LCK order.
And yes, there's nothing established about the order right now in the LCK. So much so that when you slide down this board a little bit, as Han was hovering outside that top 5, you look at a squad like Karmine Corp, who, yes, of course, went to the EWC finals as well, and you're saying, maybe I got a fresh dose of hopium with some of these squads struggling. Maybe KC can punch above their weight class and contest some of these 3rd, 4th seeds in the LCK when Worlds does roll around.
It's one of the most necessary things for Karmine Corp coming away from MSI and heading towards EWC and then in the LEC with the home road show situation was to hit the ground running again, to find that mojo, to wipe the slate clean, forget that experience and move forward and find a way to be stronger again. And that's what you're seeing from this Karmine Corp group. I think you're absolutely getting a bounce back from the bottom lane. I think they were relatively disappointing given their power and expectation heading towards those international events. You've seen that bounce back in Resurgence, I think, and how they are able to win out 2v2 as well as into these later team fight actions and how crucial they are for this Karmine Corp team. I think Kana has been really strong as well for them, and those are all aspects that you're going to need if you're going to be a Karmine Corp that can maintain this type of position within a global power ranking.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about Kana maybe being the best player in the LEC through the first couple of weeks, not just within KC. And even though Kalist looks less comfortable on the mages, as most AD carries seem to be at the moment, I'm sure the meta will shift back where we'll see them dominating again. But yeah, Lucio and Kalist have been pretty darn good so far, and it's been pretty dominant in most of the series for Karmine Corp. Again, one of the few squads that made or did not make a roster change heading into this year, so excited to see the continued growth from them. The saviors outside of BLG for the LPL remains a 5-1 start for anyone's legend, because really, even though it's the similar record to top esports, it doesn't matter what TES does domestically. You're not going to fully have the confidence in them, but AL is a different story.
Yeah, and I think for top esports, unfortunately, until you see that result go the different way on the international stage, they're going to have that cloud hanging over them, no matter the dominance or efficiency and excellency that you could see from them in the domestic results. But when you are looking at a squad like anyone's legend, and with the journey that they have been on this year, to go 5-1 to start out this split, that is that sunshine coming on through from what has been kind of a more or less overcast year of trying to figure things out as this group without Tabe behind the scenes, without your head coach who had been such a big part of this resurgence and the spectacular rise of this lineup. And so I think when you are looking at them and finding their form here to start out this next split, that is a very good sign. And it's one of these things that, again, we've been tracking and wanting to see from this Anyone's Legends group all year round.
And the truth is, even if them performing well, without Flandre Breathe coming into that lineup, I think this list right now, you can go that 7 spot with KC, and as we progress on here, probably all the way down to 12, maybe even 13. It feels like an extremely similar power level. That's why we have TL and G2, both in that 9-10 spot. And by similar power level, I mean, if there were a best-of-5 series throwdown between any of those two squads, it's pretty close to a 50-50, no more than a 60-40 either way.
This is one of my favorite things. This is like showing up to that restaurant, paying for whatever the full menu meal that you're going to get. And it's not just this is your only option. you've got multiple options, baby. You're rolling in choices in this part of the global power rankings because, as you mentioned, similar power levels. It depends on what is exactly on the individual who is looking at this type of list or grading these teams, what you value, what you like more than the others. And I think that is where you can find this, because I think when you're talking about squads like Team Liquid and G2, they're both going to offer you different aspects that you're going to look at them and feel confident about them heading towards a best of series.
If the VIP lounge is that top 5, then we're going to say the top 10, the other 5, they get the outdoor patio. You know, they get the nice seating that's there. And going a step even further, as I just said, 11 and 12 kind of lumped in there. So we're talking about Lion and Top Esports. They get that extra barrel seating that they just snuck on the patio to fit a few more people. That's where Lion and TES are, because they're kind of lumped in again, that 7 to 10 spot.
I'm let my little bit of LCS bias come in on here for Lion, and I'm gonna say, you know what, they get maybe a little bit better than just the random little barrel that you can bring out onto there. I think they've got a dedicated seat out there on the patio. We can't offer you a seat inside. We absolutely can keep one for you on that patio, and I think
they have the view. Top Esports is looking right at the brick wall.
Yeah, exactly. And that view is of Inspired heading towards the bar to join the rest of his crew. I think that's what more or less I'm waiting on to give Lion a little bit of an extra boost and jump up in these type of rankings. I think they can find themselves here, but you can't knock what they have done to start out this summer split and how they have handled things without Inspired in that lineup. And Armeo, Grig, whatever you want to call him, he's getting the job done for this squad. And I don't want anyone mistaking him getting the job done as being, okay, well, that's a different option and replacement type of style for Inspired. There is no replacing Inspired, whether you're in the LCS or the LEC. Let me make that clear. If you're in the West, there's no replacing a guy like Inspired. But it has been held strong and steady so far for this Lion group, and I'm going to give them that benefit of we're just waiting till our boy joins us here on the patio to really make our entrance into the rest of the top 10.
Yeah, this is kind of the lowest point, like the floor you can put for Lion right now, and there's just a bit of the mix up with some of these squads, and yes, Inspired not being there, but this is a top 10 team. They're going to be back in there sooner than you know it. They're right in there with the G2, Team Liquid, all them, blah, blah, blah. TL has looked really good, though, the first couple of series. World Elite and JDG, we start getting a little bit sus on these rankings. JDG, I think, is better than their record has shown so far, but still a slow start by their standards, for sure.
It's one of these ones where I think a lot of us, myself included, had very much hoped that this was going to be a quick process, a quick lightning strike of talent and strategy behind the scenes for this squad. It's not exactly been that. It has certainly been a growing period. It has been learning steps for all these people. There have been mistakes, but I think when you do look at JDG and you look at the landscape of the LPL, there's still enough that makes you want to buy in on this team, buy in on them increasing their performance level, and enough runway room within the LPL at this point of the split that you can still envision it, but not necessarily, again, to the same degree where you're talking about, anyone's legend start to this split, or even, again, despite having that cloud hang over them, Top Esports. But I think it is worth talking about squads like a JDG here.
And I mean, they need to be careful because they are first victim up for these Nirvana groups in IG and NIP, who have both looked, maybe NIP even more dominant in their first couple of series, but IG, obviously, we see the Shy back in the lineup, reunited with Rookie, and 2 series in, we're already counting, okay, how much of a miracle run do we need to get the boys back at Worlds?
Which, let's be honest, it is quite a miracle run.
It's a long road. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a journey. I hope you brought a couple of water bottles and some snacks for this one, guys. But IG with the Shy has locked in, and they have looked very good to start out this. It has been a question, of course, about who your competition is and how you're going to go through that. That's the situation that you're in right now as IG. But you've had your star, your notable players return, and they are giving you star level of performance right now. And that is the big thing that you got to be looking at any time with a lineup like this for IG. So very much so, keeping our fingers crossed, hoping, checking those results, and praying for this long run for IG, which would be a very, very fun story to cover.
Yeah, and obviously they're playing much less games because there's only 4 teams in that Nirvana group. We're gonna have to wait a few weeks until they get to that play-in part of the playoffs where they will. They're easily gonna finish top 2 in these groups to be matching up against some of the bottom teams from that Ascend whatever group in the LPL. So just excited, and they're already one of the more exciting teams to watch in the LPL. Team Secret Wales also on this list, a perfect 3-0, aka 7-0 record. It's a little bit of a weird format in the LCP for Split 3. They're kind of doing a Swiss stage type of setup, so they're already through to quarterfinals for playoffs, and we're not going to be seeing them for almost 3 weeks.
It's one of these things where, again, someone will correct us if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty darn sure I saw something within this week that they've already locked up their spot for Worlds. They've already clinched that spot given the way that they had success throughout that first part of the split, and especially in that second split where they were the most dominant team no matter what. And then again, as you've laid out with how things have gone and how they have set themselves up successfully in this next split, I think, again, they have already set themselves up for that. So not only are we not going to see them for so much time, you can keep it in the back of your mind. You can lock that in already. Team Secret Wales, one of the world's representatives.
Yeah, because the LCP, I believe, is getting, they're getting 3 seeds for this event. So based purely on the championship points, obviously winning splits and now already in playoffs. So they're not going to be the 3rd seed. They'll be at bare minimum the 2nd seed probably, but going to be a long time before we're actually seeing them. And then, of course, you got rounding out a couple of the LEC, LCS squads that we've talked about, Vitality, Koi, and FlyQuest. There's a lot to prove still for all 3 of those teams.
Yes, very much so. And I think this is one of those ones where you're maybe it goes to say more about the rest of kind of the global scene once you start getting to this point, but you are kind of grasping for straws. But at the very least, these guys are offering you. There's a mixture of straws here. So there is at least something to play for when you're talking about these squads and holding out in, the miracle of chance that they are able to improve, able to climb up their performance in this territory. I think it's all fair for them, but for me, the biggest one, the one with the expectation, the demand that you must improve and find a way to climb out of here is Movistar Koi.
Absolutely the team that has the most potential, but right now their straw is a little cut up.